Welcome to the show where truth takes the mic, where the world spins fast, but we hold it tight. This is the Howie Silbiger Show on True Talk Radio, where the real ones go. Oh, politics, passion, the news of the day, no filter, no fluff, just the Silbiger way. So buckle up tight, let the debates flow. This is your hour, the Howie Silbiger Show. Silbiger Show. Silbiger Show. Politics, passion, the news of the day, no filter, no fluff, just the Silbiger way. So buckle up tight, let the debates flow. This is your hour, the Howie Silbiger Show.
And I'm Howie Silbiger. Welcome to the program. So nice to have you here. I am happy to be here with you on this beautiful Monday evening. We have just come off an election in Montreal, in Quebec, municipal elections, and the results have been unbelievably lackluster, I would say. I'm not a big fan of status quo, as most of you know. I believe that democracy dictates that every few years we should change the people who are in leadership. I do believe that the American system of term limits should apply everywhere. At least term limits for the president should apply everywhere. And that includes for mayors and includes for city councilors. It bothers me that people complain, and then they vote in the same. It's unbelievable. In fact, it's almost infuriating that only 25% of eligible voters showed up to vote. We have a privilege. It's not a God-given right that we have to go and vote in an election. It's a privilege that we are given by this country that we live in. Choosing not to vote or just being apathetic not only helps people get reelected time and time again. Some councilors and mayors have been serving for over 20 years. It usurps democracy. It kind of reverses the process. A process that's supposed to be the people choosing their leadership becomes an elite few choosing their leadership, which is how some of these leaders get into power, which is how some of these people stay in power. I'm really surprised that in cities that had extremely contentious fights for mayorships, that the turnout for voting was very low. It surprises me that more people didn't come out in Hampstead. It surprises me more people didn't come out in Côte Saint-Luc, where the fight for mayor was really a tough fight. And you could see how tough it was, where the winners, which turned out to be the incumbents, only won by a very, 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 very slim margin. I think it was 25 or 50 votes, under 100 votes for sure. And this just goes to show that every vote counts, and that you choosing not to go out and vote, if you were one of the ones who didn't go out and vote, are just adding to this usurping of democracy. You are adding to the elimination of the people's choice. It bothers me. It just bothers me. But it is the nature of human beings. When we live in peace, we don't realize what the advantage we have of living in a country like the country we live in. We don't realize that there are other countries in the world where elections happen and there are men standing with guns ready to shoot you if you vote the wrong way. We don't live in a world like that. And we should be grateful we don't live in a world like that, and we should accept the fact that we don't live in a world like that. The idea that there is a concept of not taking part in democracy, but enjoying the benefits of democracy, doesn't sit well with me. And I like the idea that Australia has and that they've implemented for years and years and years now. In Australia, when you have an election, it doesn't matter what kind of election it is, you are obligated to go out and vote. If you are not checked off in the voters' rolls, then you are fined. You could be arrested. Australia says you have to take democracy seriously. But then again, let's back up for a second. If we say let's take democracy seriously, and we're going to arrest you if you don't vote, well, wouldn't that be the opposite of democracy? In a democratic society, you should have the right to choose whether you vote or not. So if you choose not to vote, that's your democratic right. So you see how it's a double-edged sword? Where 25% of the people show up. The incumbents keep winning. The people who have been in office forever keep winning. The mayor of Côte Saint-Luc, the mayor of Hampstead. They keep winning and winning and winning, serving 20, 30 years on the councils. Killing the idea of progression or new ideas that come into a city. Young people wanting to run, young people wanting to get into politics, young people wanting to step up in politics, don't have the opportunity because old timers keep holding on. And it's more of an ego thing than anything else, really. What shocks me in Côte Saint-Luc, and we'll talk about Côte Saint-Luc, then we'll move on to some of the other places. What shocks me in Côte Saint-Luc is the fact that the entire council was reelected. This council that backed the Liberal Party that Côte Saint-Luc rejected, or a good portion of Côte Saint-Luc rejected, when during the last federal election, when Anthony Housefather barely squeaked by and won his MP seat. It's shocking that a city that was so clear on not supporting Liberals put all the Liberals back into power, including the mayor, Mitchell Brownstein, who was until this election, he probably will go back to being that, was the head and the chairman of the Liberal Running Association for Mount Royal. It's just surprising that so many people yelling vote Conservative would vote Liberal when it comes to municipal politics. Kind of weird, isn't it? In Hampstead, I have to really like Jeremy Levy, the mayor of Hampstead, who won the election by a small margin. I also really like Jack Ettery, who was running against Mayor Levy. And I really kind of like William Steinberg, who was also running. I liked all three of them. So it's very hard to watch an election where you like all three candidates and you're hoping all three win. I'm happy that Jeremy Levy won. I'm happy that Jack Ettery came so close to winning. It's just too bad he's not going to be on council since he lost the mayor's election. He doesn't have a council seat, which is too bad. He was a longtime councillor in Hampstead. So, but Jack Ettery is a great guy. So is Jeremy Levy, and I really like William Steinberg. So liking all three candidates really didn't help very much. Now, as we move on to Montreal and Greater Montreal, the winner of the mayorship of Montreal didn't surprise me, as she was being backed by every group possible. Ensemble Montreal was the party to vote for. That was a trendy party to vote for. The idea that we were voting for a former Justin Trudeau cabinet minister kind of bothered me. But I'll put that aside because I can't put that aside, really. Come on. We elected as mayor of Montreal a former Liberal cabinet minister under Justin Trudeau. It's not the first time we do that. Denis Coderre was also a Liberal cabinet minister. I don't understand what this love affair Montrealis have with the Liberal Party is, but here we are. Now, I hope that the new mayor of Montreal will reverse some of the craziness that has plagued Montreal for the last few years. Plagued Montreal the last few years. I really hope so. But here we are. We're at this point where the winners are the winners, and the losers have to lick their wounds and move on. And that's really what we have to do. We have to lick our wounds and move on, and hope that the people elected will take the job seriously. Hope that the people elected will do what they have to do in order to keep Montreal and the suburbs running smoothly. Now, the election in Côte Saint Luc has been reversed, and it just came out. Actually, it was just announced just in the last hour or so that the mayor of Côte Saint Luc, Mitchell Brownstein, lost the mayorship by one vote. How crazy is that? One vote. So David Torgman has been named mayor of Côte Saint Luc, named elected mayor by one vote. I can almost guarantee this is going into a recount. I can't imagine that Mitchell Brownstein's going to sit back and lose the mayorship by one vote. But anything's possible. It's fascinating how tight this race is. And I know Mitch a long time, Mitchell Brownstein. I know him a long time. I know David Torchman a long time. And I know both men are committed to running the city of Côte Saint Luc as brilliantly as they can. But the one vote, I've been covering politics a really long time, and I don't think I've ever seen a tight race like this in a municipal election. That the mayorship of a city, of a large city, is decided by one vote. I don't think I've ever seen that. Now let's back this up for a second, and knowing and seeing that first Mitchell Brownstein was announced mayor of Côte Saint Luc, and now David Torchman is being announced mayor of Côte Saint Luc by one vote. That the updated count reverses the results in Côte Saint Luc, and now David Torchman is breaking news. David Torchman is mayor of Côte Saint Luc. Understanding that every single vote counts. There's no better way to highlight how every single vote counts when the race in Côte Saint Luc is based on one vote. The mayor won by one vote. How crazy is that? And in all the years I've been doing this show and all the years I've been covering politics, I don't think I've ever seen a race come down to one vote. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's true. That's what's happening. So now that they've reversed the decision, and of course Mayor Brownstein is going to appeal, and he's going to call for a recount. So we'll see what happens after that. But it doesn't change what I said. It doesn't change the whole beginning of the show. Before I knew that there was an updated count and that Torchman was elected mayor. It doesn't change anything. Because once again, the rest of the council is exactly the same. Dita Burku, who was in Côte Saint Luc Council for 35 years. 35 years! That's a long time. The only time she wasn't in council is when she ran for mayor and then sat out for 4 years. And then she was reelected. 35 years on council. And then she anointed her opponent, her successor. She said, "I want this guy to replace me," and that guy replaced her. And who was that guy? Also a liberal. He worked for Anthony Housefather, a liberal. So you can't get away from this whole clique of liberals and left wingers and the people on council who are all friends and family. It's almost nepotism. I would say it's an incestuous thing going on in Côte Saint Luc, where it's the same group of people and all their friends who keep getting elected, and they kind of anoint each other and they kind of push each other into the positions. It's interesting. It's very interesting when you look at that. And they do it all legally because there's no collusion. I don't think anyone's doing anything illegal. I don't think anyone's doing anything bad per se. They're trying to do the best they can for the city. And they're all very nice people individually. I know them all. They're all really nice people individually. But I really think that when you have a clique like that, although they may work well together because they all get along, they're all friends, I think at the end, the city ends up losing out because it lacks vision. And when you sit on council for 35 years, you may have your pet projects that you're working on, but you tend to lack vision. You're not forward thinking anymore. You become very complacent. You become very accepting. You become very very understanding of the challenges you face on council. It becomes rote rather than an exciting new thing, a new challenge. And so I believe that councils, that city councils everywhere, not only in Côte St. Luc but everywhere else, should have term limits, and people should not be able to sit on council forever. Now, you could agree with me, you could disagree with me, that's fine. 1-877-669-1292 is the number to call, 1-877-669-1292. And you can express your opinion. There's breaking news. David Torchman has been named mayor. He said they've declared him as the winner of the election in Côte St. Luc. The count has finished, and it turns out that David Torchman got one vote more than Mitchell Brownstein. And since it's the first past the post, this is how we do elections in the municipalities. It's the guy who gets the most amount of votes wins. One vote will give you the mayorship. And David Torchman got one more vote than Mitchell Brownstein. I could almost guarantee there'll be a recount. Another thing that bothered me, another thing that I really didn't really like, and I wrote about it on MontrealJewishNews.com, so you could check out my article on MontrealJewishNews.com. I wrote about it. The thing that really bothers me is the fact that the English media did not cover the municipal elections. Sure, at 11 o'clock, the 11 o'clock news on CTV covered it, but the coverage should have started right after the polls closed. This is a major election. It's a major city. It's the largest city in Quebec. The English media should have covered it. All French media covered it. 3 French media stations had reporters everywhere, and they were covering it, full coverage. They had full television coverage. But CTV, they were playing a football game. CBC, they were playing some comedy. And City TV didn't cover it at all. And so the English Montrealers had nowhere to go for election coverage on television. The only place they had to go, which is what I did, was to CJD Radio. And so on CJD Radio, I was watching their feed on YouTube. They had a webcam feed. CTV Radio, CJD Radio, I'm sorry, they're owned by CTV, but CJD Radio was covering the elections. They were the only English media covering the election in Quebec. How sad is that? And they were covering it. Elias Makos was there alone in the studio, which is very unusual for an election. Usually it's 2 or 3 people. He was alone as the sole host, and he had two men in studio with him, 2 analysts in studio with him that he was talking to, and a couple of people on the phone. They didn't even have enough reporters, CJD, to cover all the places they had to cover all the headquarters. So they relied on the Suburban to provide them with reporters. And they used Suburban reporters who were going around doing their job for the Suburban to call in and tell them what's going on in these different headquarters. How sad is that? Bell Media owns CTV and owns CJD. And they've cut so much, and they've cut the news department so much, that CTV News, the television station, and CTV Radio, CJD, didn't have enough reporters between the 2 of them to cover a municipal election. When all the French stations had all the reporters in the world running around and covering everything. How sad. How sad. CJD used to be a powerhouse. It used to be the station to go to for news and talk. And it's just a shadow of itself. Not even a shadow of itself. It's a shadow of itself. It's very, very sad what Bell Media has done to English media in Montreal. And this is why it's important to have True Talk Radio. This is why it's important to have the Montreal Jewish News. This is why it's important to have shows like this one, where we'll talk about the local issues, where we'll talk about stuff that nobody else is talking about. Well, we'll talk about Montreal, because there's nobody else out there to talk about Montreal. after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, CJD has no programming, no live programming in the entire evening. This is what English Montreal media has come to. No live programming at all. Well, we could fill the void. We could do a show here every night and fill the void. That's possible. But the only way that could happen is if you tell your friends to come in and listen. If you tell people that we're going to be on, then we have no problem coming on every single night and doing a show. We could do a long show. We could do a short show. We could do a whatever show you want. But to come on night after night and not know if anybody's listening. No, I know people are listening. I have my count. I could see how many people are listening. I understand how many people are listening. And I know how many people are listening at any given time, which is wonderful. It's a big step up over what the mainstream media has. They can't see how many people are listening, but I can. And I understand that the listenership could be larger. We have a fairly nice listenership. We have a fairly large listenership. And even sporadically, as we do the show sporadically, the listenership, every time we log on and then do a show, the listenership is nice and big, which is beautiful to see. And I thank you all for joining me and for being here and for seeing your notifications and clicking on it and joining me on here. I do appreciate that. That is amazing. Thank you so much. We will do the show more often. Of course we will. Because why not? Nobody else is talking. We should. Once you stop talking, then you've kind of capitulated. It's over. You've given up. And I don't believe in giving up. I'm not the kind of guy who gives up. Anyway, if you want to get on the conversation, you can give me a call. 1-877-669-1292 is the number to call. 1-877-669-1292. Are you upset about any of the results? Are you upset about the lack of English Montreal media? I've been upset about it for a while already, but the election, the lack of election coverage, the lack of good election coverage, or lack of any real election coverage, really upset me, because it's just such disrespect to the English community. That's all it is. And the fact that Projet Montreal's leader didn't speak a word of English, and Ensemble Montreal, who the English community somehow rallied for, spoke only a couple of words of English in their thank you or in their speeches, seems to me to be a slap in the face to the English community. But that's what we have to live with here in Quebec, I guess. It's sad, but it's the reality of the situation here in Quebec. And I believe, and I strongly believe, that we need strong English media. We need people who will be on day and night talking about the issues that need to be spoken about. We need representation. We need voices. We need to be able to express ourselves. And unfortunately, the corporations have killed that. It's a very sad statement, and I'm sorry I have to bring that sad statement to you, but that's the reality of the situation. All right, I'm Howie Silbiger. Thank you for joining me. I will see you again next show. Have a great one.